The winning run has come to an end. It was a step too far heading up to the high-flying York City Knights on Sunday for the Bears. But not to worry, we've still got plenty to talk about. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bear Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bear Necessities, your podcast all about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, plenty of other places too, and we're sponsored by the Bears Vice Presidents and by York's Tim. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson, and joining me as always, my co-pilot, Craig Cathcart. Craig, how are you doing?
Yes, good, mate. I was up at the game, not the result we wanted, but, the lads put in a really good effort, and, their efforts were really appreciated.
Yep, good stuff. Well, we will dig it deeper into the game from Sunday in a short while. So coming up on this week's show, we're obviously going to look back on Sunday's defeat to York City Knights, and we will hear from Bears head coach Tom Tsang. We'll have more of your Ask Mr. C questions, and we'll take a quick look ahead to this weekend's game against Doncaster. So let's jump in with a look back on Sunday's trip to high-flying York. As I said, the Bears were looking for a fifth consecutive win, but ultimately the Neats were just too good, and the Bears were sent home with a 68-6 defeat. As Craig mentioned, he travelled north with the team to watch it all, so I'll pick his brains in a mo. But first, here are the very windy post-match thoughts of Bears head coach Tom Tsang.
Thanks for joining me today, Tom. So, a bit of a step too far today. The Bears are in search of a fifth win in a row, but came up against a very good York side.
Yeah, York were excellent today. It was always going to be tough for us, obviously, coming off the back of midweek game and then a tough game that took a lot out of us against Keighley. And obviously the guys that were away with the Student Four Nations, they'd already played 3 games in that week themselves. So we've got a team full of lads who've played a hell of a lot of rugby in the last sort of 2 weeks. Like you say, coming up against a York team that were sort of just that class above, really. For mine, they're a mid-table championship team, at least probably in terms of the talent they've got on the side. And obviously coached very well. The way that they're ruthless, they play very quick, they play very fast through the middle, and didn't really make a mistake apart from a couple of drop balls on the line, so it could have been a little bit more actually. I'm quite proud of the way the lads stuck to the task, especially in the second half. We only had one fit player for pretty much the whole of the second half, so for us to keep the score to what it was actually a great testament to the character that they're showing. We won't play a team now that plays as fast and as quick and as sharp as that. We've got a real tough run in. We've got Donny, we've got a couple that both worked in the Whitehaven away, we've got Oldham away, we've got Hunslet down at our place, Crusaders down at ours, so we've got a real tough 7 games. There's no question about it, but we won't play a team better than that. And if we can defend anywhere near as well as we did today, which sounds funny considering the scoreline, but actually we did all right defensively. If we do that, then we'll give ourselves opportunities.
Yeah, I thought today, particularly the goal line defence was really, really good. Really put in a massive effort, especially when York got near the line.
Yeah, and that's obviously where our biggest improvement has been, is defending our goal line. York have a threat which is much greater than what other teams do further out, so they can literally score from anywhere on the field. So you've always got to be constantly concentrating to make sure that every threat is covered off. But against a team that has genuine options on every play, pretty much, it's difficult to do that. And obviously they're confident and they're chasing down that points difference to try and pip Bradford. So they're chasing every point that they can do. So all in all, it was always going to be tough. It didn't go our way, but we can't be too down on the lads because they've really proved it hard.
Yeah, I think York's kicking game as well today was just absolutely phenomenal. Precision kicks going into, and the guys did their best to cope with it. But when you come up against quality like that, you're always going to struggle, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely agree. Their short kicking game in particular was fantastic. And one thing I wasn't happy about was what we did with the ball when the limited chances we had. I thought we sort of played within ourselves and we didn't express ourselves particularly well with the ball. And then that actually then put pressure on ourselves defensively off the back of it, that we weren't turning the ball over in areas that helped us. And obviously we made quite a few errors, but that was obviously off the back of York defending really aggressively. So we know that that's what the teams do as well, so we know that we need to combat that somehow.
But yeah, what I was pleased about today was, fatigue was obviously a factor, I think, later on in the game. Some of the lads have played, 6 games in 2 weeks, but actually come up and score the last try. So, I was really proud of the guys to go out and do that right at the end of the game.
Yeah, it was a good finish from Massey, to be fair. And it just shows that they've got the heart's there, the character's there to keep going. And defensively, they stuck to the task for probably all the way through. But within each set, they're doing what they need to do for probably sort of 80-90% of the time. But it was that the 10% that they didn't do, that York were clinical and ruthless. So, like I said, we won't play a better team than that for the rest of the year. So we know what's ahead of us for these next 7 games. So we'll just need to make sure that we give our the best account of ourselves.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot achieved in the last few weeks, and we head into a game against Doncaster next week, which again will probably be another tough game. But with the Bears support at home, I'm sure the Bears will be well up for the game and give a good performance.
Huge thanks to Tom as always for joining us. So Craig, the winning run came to an end against a team hunting down promotion and who are highly likely to be in the league above next year. I mean, how was it on Sunday? The score says one thing, but I'm guessing you're going to tell me the performance was slightly better than the score might suggest.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I've been on a few away trips where I've come back and everyone's been a bit low, but I had a bit of pride in the Bears lads on Sunday. They, it was evident in the second half that some of them were tiring. Some of them had played 6 games in 2 weeks, and they were starting to feel it. And they spent most of the game defending, which just kills you, doesn't it, when you're constantly running back and you're having to put hits in. So, they really felt it, but they kept going right to the end and scored right at the end. So, there was... and their goal line defence as well was very, very good. They defended well at times, just tiredness got the better of them. But also, I mean, they were up against just a fantastic team. There's very little to choose between them and Bradford as to who's the best team in the league. What I would say about York is, with Bradford, I think they've got fantastic individuals and they can create things out of nothing. But York just keep going from the first minute to the last minute. They do not let up. They just keep going and going. And obviously they're chasing points because they're behind Bradford on points difference. They're just pretty relentless. They're quick in attack. Their line speed's quick in defence. The Bears really didn't get much of a look in. York controlled the game from start to finish, really. And the Bears, when you're not getting many sets to get away from your own line, then you're really going to struggle. But overall, I thought the lads did as well as could be expected. It was one of those where I thought, will adrenaline pull them through? But sadly, it didn't. But there was a few good performances, and as I said, the lads shouldn't feel too downhearted about it. York will put lots of points on people between now and the end of the season. I have no doubt about that. And it was a good experience all round. First time to Bootham Crescent, probably the last time before they moved to the new stadium. Different atmosphere than I'm used to. It has to be said. I mean,
how so?
Well, I think you go to a Bears game and you can kind of wander around where you want. You can talk to whoever you want. You can sit wherever you want. You can wander in and out of different rooms within the stadium and talk to different people. And in other places around the country in League One, that gets replicated up to a certain extent. Bootham Crescent's a football ground. There's a bigger crowd there. They have to manage the larger crowd. It wasn't quite like that, probably more like a football style atmosphere. And I think I wouldn't quite call it hostile, but very vocal and passionate crowd, I would say, is probably the best way to put it. and certainly got on the referee's back throughout the game as well. So I wouldn't like to be a referee there week in, week out. So it was definitely an eye-opener.
I'm guessing it wasn't overly aggressive towards the Bears, though. Was it more at the officials and creating a hostile atmosphere in general?
Yeah, I think it's certainly not the Bears. Obviously, the Bears are the enemy on the day, and they want to encourage their team and not the Bears. But when the Bears did do something good, played out a good set or did a good move, then the crowd clapped them. Similar to Bradford, really. Bradford, the Bears were clapped when they did anything good. So it's one of those, I guess it's one of those old school atmospheres still up there, which is probably good to see because, everything's sensitized nowadays, and it's good to see some proper old school rugby league crowds are still going to games.
I did see something on Twitter, somebody mentioning about sort of quite heavy-handed stewarding. Did you see any of that, or was it...
Again, I think it's different than what we're used to.
Yeah.
I expect that the stewards there deal with football crowds as well. So it was that's kind of how you were treated a little bit. It was like a football,
So they see you as an away fan and just default to being.
Yeah, lots of rules and regulations as well, about where you're supposed to go, where you're supposed to stand, where you're supposed to sit. Which, as I said, it's something we're not used to. So I noticed it certainly. But I wouldn't say it was anything bad. It's just something that we're not used to. Going to the Butts Park Arena, where it's a much more laid-back atmosphere. So
fair enough. So tell me a bit about Jason's try, because I know I was following the game on Twitter, ironically travelling back home from very near to York, but unable to make the game, and there wasn't much to follow in terms of Bears activity until right at the end when Jason scored, and it sounded like it was a decent score as well. So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, there wasn't an awful lot to cheer, as you can probably tell. But one of the biggest cheers of the day went up whenever Jason scored. So he knocked. I think he either intercepted or knocked down a kick and gathered it, and then went the full length of the field, being chased. I mean, I think Jason's deceptively quick. He had York players chasing him all the way, but he managed to hang on in there and get over the line. And as I said, massive cheer went up from the Bears fans, and the York fans as well give a round of applause after he scored it. So I think it was good. It would have been. I don't think the Bears' efforts deserve to be nil. They didn't deserve to be nil based on the effort that they put in on the pitch. So to get some points, come away with some points, and when they were pretty much dead on their feet right at the end of the game, to get that score was a bonus, really. As I say, and something for the fans to go home with. A Bears try at Bootham Crescent, probably the last Bears try at Bootham Crescent before they move.
Yeah. So who else stood out on the day from the Bears then in terms of performance wise? I know there wasn't much to pick from, but did anyone else catch your eye?
I think defensively, everyone was good. Sam Davis again, I thought was good. Zach Williams played really well again. They interchanged quite well. The pack played well. A couple of mistakes, it has to be said, on loose carries. The guys, to be honest, the guys in the backs didn't get much to do, and they really struggled against Connor Robinson's kicking game. I mean, he's got to be one of the best standoffs in the league. His precision kicks were just an absolute nightmare to deal with. He went high, he went grubbers along the ground, did crossfield kicks. And on the whole, the Bears did deal well with it at times. At other times, York scored from it. And to be honest, they had a couple of really lucky bounces. Once or twice it came off a Bears player and landed in a York player's hands, or came off the post. So the Bears didn't get the rub of the green at all when it came to open play. And, I don't think the officials had a terribly bad day, but they really didn't give anything to the Bears at all. Most 50-50s went York's way. As usually happens at the away ground, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, Jason had a good game. He had a couple of really difficult high kicks to take, which he took well. It's good to see Dante back, and he's looking fitter and fitter all the time. The guys in the centres both played well. Kieran and Chris Barrett played well defensively. As I said, through the middle as well. Especially on the line, the guys did well, but just came up against a better team. As I said, there's some positives to take into next week, which will be another tough game.
Mm-hmm. And what about Joe Batchelor playing for York? Because I gather he carried on what he was doing at the Butts Park Arena early in the season and sort of cut through the Bears line a few times. Obviously, he's got that link to the Bears, and he's going off to St Helens next year. Based on what you've seen on him from the 2 games you've seen him play, do you think that jump from League One to Super League is going to be a big jump for him, or do you think he looks like he's got the skills to make the transition?
He looks... he was a good player at the Bears, but he looks an even better player now. He looks like he's, physically he's a lot stronger. He's fast. His all-round game has improved dramatically, really. So if he shows that progression, then he'll be able to make that step. I think he's someone who trains hard and works really hard at it, and fully deserves to get that opportunity.
It's going to be fascinating to see if St Helens decide to play him next year, or if they loan him back to York or somebody else to get a bit more experience, like you sometimes see in the Premier League. You see the big teams snap up these upcoming players and then loan them back out. I think it'd be fascinating to see what happens to Joe Batchelor next season, what division he's playing in. Yeah,
well, he scored 4 tries on Sunday. I think he got a hat-trick maybe down at the Butts Park Arena. So
yeah,
he's punished his old club a couple of times this year.
Certainly has.
I think the top of League One, the standard there is easily up there with maybe the standard about towards the bottom end of the top 8 in the Championship. York and Bradford, I think, had they been playing in the Championship this year, would have been quite high up the table. So I don't think it's a huge leap, going from where he is, what team he's playing for in League One to go to Super League. Obviously, it's going to take some adjustment, and I don't expect him to maybe slot in there and play straight away, but he's good enough. I'm certain to do it.
Yeah, and best of luck to him, obviously. With that Coventry link, it'll be great to see somebody who's made it from the Bears all the way to a top Super League team as well. Because we're no disrespect to our friends that we made at Widnes this year. There's a bit of a difference between him signing for someone who's battling out in the qualifiers over these next few weeks and signing for St Helens, who are looking like they're going to win everything. So great stuff to see a forward there.
Fantastic news, and another story about the benefits of expansion now.
Exactly.
He might not have got an opportunity to play somewhere the year he came to the Bears. He could be, we've seen players come in League One, lots of players come in, play for a season, disappear, and fall away from the professional game. There's actually plenty of ex-Bears players who are now playing amateur rugby because they haven't managed to get into haven't managed to keep in the professional game. So someone like him could have missed his opportunity if he hadn't had that opportunity at the Bears.
Well, I suppose when he's winning his first, second and third grand finals in the next few years, we can forgive him those 7 tries he scored against us this season.
Well, what he needs to do when he's picking up his grand final winners medal, he needs to take off his Saints shirt and have a Bears shirt underneath.
There we go. He'll probably, to be fair, he'd probably need a half and half Bears and York shirt. I'd allow that.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Well, the winning run may have come to an end, but there is still plenty of reasons to be excited about the rest of the season, not least because the Bears don't have to play York again and don't have to play a team anywhere near as good as York again, as Tom said in his post-match interview. But also, there are plenty of reasons to be excited about the rest of this very episode, mainly because it's time to ask Mr. C. Right, this is Ask Mr. C, the part of the show where I put your questions to my co-host, and is sponsored by York's Tim, for which we're very grateful. If you've got something you'd like to ask Craig on a future episode, then of course don't be shy. Email us a question using the contact form at covbearspodcast.com, or tweet it to @covbearspodcast using the hashtag Ask Mr. C. So we've got 4 questions for you this week, Craig. One of them's technically for me, but we'll get to that in a minute. First off, from Rachel Presley. Simple question. Players on international duty, positive or negative for the Bears?
Absolutely positive. There's no other way to look at it. I mean, I have to say, I watched some of the student Four Nations. The standard looked pretty good. It's a chance for them to play international rugby, to make contacts, to look at different training methods, come up against players and or their peers. It's absolutely fantastic for the guys. I mean, 10 representatives from the Bears. Some of these lads didn't grow up in traditional heartland areas. They grew up, there's quite a few Midlands Academy lads and other players from outside the heartlands that were in that England team, for example. That's an opportunity for them to play more rugby league and to play more rugby league at a high level. These guys need to play as many games as they can, really, and it'll only improve them. And the Bears have done loads of work in giving student players a pathway into professional or semi-professional rugby league. And long may it continue, because you can see how many good players we've managed to get through that system. And some of them may well go on to play at a much higher level. And
just as a pure confidence boost for those guys to be walking around saying, I'm an international, that can only be a good thing as well.
Yeah. And that England students team is a very good team. I mean, they're very, very good, and be interesting to see how many more Bears players line up for any of the 4 home nations over the next couple of years.
Well, one of them, in fact, is the subject of this next question from Tim Griffiths. Now he's back. When are we doing Dante Day? I'm thinking it might need to be next season now, because we're running out of home games.
Yeah, well, I did think possibly maybe the final game of the season. That could be an option. We might, if we can try and get it organised.
Yeah, that
we'll have
doable.
To see if anyone out there fancies doing it, then we'll do it.
We should probably ask Dante as well, really.
Yeah, we should probably ask his permission to do it. But he's definitely captured a lot of the Bears fans' hearts this year. So I think we'd really love to do some sort of tribute at the end of the season.
Definitely. And if anyone listening to this podcast happens to be a supplier of red wigs, then please send us an email using the contact form at covbearspodcast.com. We've got a proposition for you. So next question comes from the Bears' very own Dan Gover. And he says, what was that song played every time Ben Stead slotted a conversion against West Wales? Now I'm guessing he means this one. So yeah, Craig, I mean, this has come in and asked me to see this. As you pointed out in your reply on Twitter, this is kind of my domain, really. That was obviously for West Wales game.
Kick song.
Yes, yeah, the Hey Dougie song. So Tim, our usual brilliant stadium announcer, wasn't able to make the West Wales game. So for those who perhaps missed the last show, I volunteered to fill in. And obviously that meant I got to sort the music and sort the jingles out. So I just thought, we've done Can You Kick It? Yes, You Can. Done that plenty of times. I thought I'd have the kicky kick one in just for a laugh. Did the first couple as sort of Mario noises, and then I thought, no, this is going well. We can get away with this. And I think people liked it. I'm pretty sure people were clapping along in the second half.
In the stadium, I have to say, it helped the atmosphere definitely.
I think it's one of those there's a bunch of people in this country, parents of young children, who hate that song because it went mad before the World Cup, and I just found out about it just because I spend far too much time online. And just parked it in my brain somewhere and thought, yeah, I can definitely use that at some point. So, it was Hey Dougie. Hey Dougie, apparently. The full version is quite spectacular, actually. It features a giant chicken doing a very big kick and Alexander Armstrong's voice at the end of it. But, I don't know. I've offered to email it to Tim to use in future games, and he seems keen. So who knows?
Watch this space.
Yeah, we might be hearing kick at the Butts Park Arena again before the end of the season. Last question this week from Fatboy Rob. How does Craig feel about jinxing the Bears with his prediction they would go the rest of the season unbeaten? So how do you feel, Craig?
Slightly embarrassed, and to be honest, I thought as soon as I said it, I thought I'm probably jinxing them now. But it's not really a jinx at them losing against York. Had they lost against maybe West Wales or someone, I would blame myself. But I can't blame myself for them losing against York. But however, I have been to a few away games this year, and I've yet to see the Bears win. So I'm starting to think maybe I am possibly a bit of a jinx. So let's hope they get a win on the weekend on the next away game that I'm there to wipe that slate clean.
Yes, fingers crossed. Perhaps we should have you on record now as saying the Bears are going to lose every game between now and the end of the season, and that might reverse the jinx. Or maybe that will come true, and maybe we shouldn't do that. Let's just hedge our bets and not say
anything that I've said about the Bears winning every game for the rest of the season.
Cool. Okay, that's parked, and that is that for Ask Mr. C this week. Don't forget, if you've got something you'd like to ask Craig on a future episode, drop us a line, drop us a tweet, and we will ask it. And thanks as ever to York's Tim for sponsoring this section. Right, that's almost it for this week, but not before we look ahead to Sunday's game at home to Doncaster, 3pm kickoff at the Butts Park Arena. So Craig, this season kicked off many, many weeks ago with a 70-10 defeat away at Doncaster. 70 of those points, those 70 points included 32 from Super League's Hakim Maludi, who hopefully we won't be seeing on Sunday. But we turned a 98-6 defeat against Keighley into a win, so it's a different Bears. Well, it's not necessarily a different Bears team this week, but it feels like a different Bears team in terms of the atmosphere around the club and where they're at. So what do you think for Sunday? Do you think at the very least we're not going to see such a big gap?
I think that first game was a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. The Bears started well that day, and travelling up there, everyone was full of optimism about the season ahead. And as I said, they made a great start, scored first, were in the game after 20 minutes, and then it just all went wrong. And then Hakim Maludi came on and just completely destroyed the Bears. So, it's one of those things, I think this will be a much closer game. The Bears can turn this around. Absolutely. They're a much better team than they were then. All the training and everything else that's gone in has had an impact. Defensively, the Bears there's night and day between how they were that day and how they are now. So they will push them close. However, Hakim Maludi did play for Doncaster at the weekend. So he may well play this weekend. I think with Doncaster, they've got a very good team. There's no doubt about that. And they are probably a top 5 team, and they are likely to finish there. But when they have 2 or 3 Hull FC players on dual reg, particularly people of the quality of Hakim Maludi, then it makes a difference. So it really depends what Doncaster team comes down to play the weekend. I think the Bears can be confident of hopefully getting something out of the game, but as I said, it all depends on who comes down. The Bears have just got to manage whoever they play against. And, I'm confident that it'll be a much better performance and a much closer game. And, as you said, we turned around 98-6 against Keighley. We can do the same against Doncaster.
And to be honest, even if Maludi does turn up in Coventry on Sunday, which would be really annoying given that Hull have got so many injuries, they should really be looking after their own. But if he does turn up, we just set Peter Ryan on him and just tell him to do what he did to Fui Fui. He's not going to be scoring 32 points if after a hit from Peter Ryan.
He's getting a big Irishman smashing into him,
Yeah, but in all seriousness, if Maludi does turn up, it's got the potential to be a bit of a mental challenge for the Bears. If they see him again, the challenge for the Bears is not to let their heads drop and think, oh no, it's him again. It's actually to think, well, this guy thinks he's better than us. He's dropping down here for an easy ride this weekend from Super League. We're going to show him what we're about, and actually,
exactly,
and just deal with him as they would deal with anybody else in the team, and not be put off with him. Because people who've watched Hull on TV this year will know that Hakim Maludi is a player that you can wind up. he looks like a kind of player who does, if things aren't going his way, he will start behaving like a spoiled child. So in some ways, I kind of want him to be there now on Sunday, just so we can get into him and aggravate him a bit. But I'm with you. I think that it's a completely different proposition in terms of what sort of a challenge for Doncaster the Bears will be this week. I think that, as you say, they're defending much better as a team. I think the crucial thing is they are much more of a team now than on that first day of the season. So I'm really looking forward to it, and it's always good to see the Bears pit themselves against the more fancied teams at the top of the league. I think we can, as we said earlier in the episode, take out Bradford and York because they are leagues ahead of everybody else in this division. But go from third down. I know Oldham's have ripped us to shreds not so long ago, but they're fairly inconsistent. It's interesting now with this bit of confidence from the last month. It would be interesting to see the Bears pit themselves against these teams, and there's no reason to shirk away from it now. There's 7 games left in the season. There's still a couple of wins up for grabs there, and there's no reason why one of them can't be there.
Yeah, there's winnable games in there. I would like to see the Bears get 3, but a couple more wins, I'd be pretty happy with that. Mm-hmm. I'm confident that they can, if they play to the best of their abilities, they can pick up more wins before the end of the season.
We should also give a quick nod to the weekly uselessness of BBC Sports live scores update as well, because they had it down as West Wales having beaten Hemel 22-0 at one point on Sunday, which wasn't the case at all. I feel very sorry for any West Wales fans who may have seen that and got excited. But let's hope that if BBC Sport is showing Bears beating the Doncaster on Sunday, it has actually happened and it's not a BBC Sport error. But you can come down and make sure that you get behind the Bears and see if that happens this Sunday, 3 p.m. at the Butts Park Arena. Bears facing Doncaster, all the usual deal. Get down early, get yourself a drink, enjoy the atmosphere, and then stick around and enjoy the rugby. And we'll be here next week to tell the story of Sunday's game. Whatever happens, however many Super League players turn up, we'll be there to talk about it. Of course, we live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. Subscribe in Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen to this from. And we're sponsored by the Bears Vice Presidents and by York's Tim. Craig, thank you as always, and I will see you on Sunday.
Cheers, mate. See you Sunday.